Today, we continue the conversation with a Canadian lifestyle influencer and professional foodie. Yep, you heard that right. It can be your job title. Sara Mills is passionate about putting her home province of Nova Scotia on the map as a travel destination, and seeing the numbers of tourists flocking there, I'd say she's nailing it. As co-founder of Dashboard Living, she is surely marrying passion with purpose. Her and husband Brent have left their corporate jobs behind to live their best life, and in the process now teach and train others on how they can do the same thing. Consulting business owners on their content and marketing strategy, their modern approach has been resonating. As Sara cleverly says, who cares if you've got 1 million followers if none of them are buying what you're selling? Getting businesses in front of the right audiences is what they are all about. Sara and her hubby have upgraded their 9-to-5 life for one of sipping craft bevies, snapping crazy pics of themselves eating seafood along the coastline, and being official wine ambassadors for the province. And they do that for a living. Sounds like a best life worth living. So thanks, Sara, for taking a moment out of your travel schedule to talk to us about chasing the dream and finally living it. So excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. It's super weird for me to be on the other end of a show.
I know. You're not leading. Do you want to ask me some questions? Would that make you feel better? You can. Oh man, Sara and I have known each other for a really long time. So Sara and Sara, let's do this. We're pretty excited that we're across the oceans right now in 2 different days. Pretty wild. So let's educate people a little. Growing up in Nova Scotia as a little girl, and all of you that need to Google that and find out where it is in Canada, it's on the East Coast. Did you ever think that you'd be able to do what you're now doing for a living?
I didn't even know that what I'm doing for a living could be done for a living. We always joke when everyone asks that question, like, how did you, do what you do? And I always said, well, we kind of made this job up and it has just evolved, as we have. But no, when I was little, I certainly didn't think I was going to be an influencer. That word is so weird for us. We don't love it and whatever, but it is. So no is the short answer. We had no idea. I had no idea that I would be doing this.
So what did you dream about then? What was like the little girl in Nova Scotia? Were you going to be like a lobster diver or what?
Yeah, no, not a lobster diver. It's funny. It's a funny question for me because I feel like I didn't have, when I was a little girl, I wasn't like, I'm going to be an astronaut. I was going to be a professional singer. That's what I was going to be.
Adele.
I was a little girl. But I didn't have, I felt for a lot of my life, even from a young girl and through all of school, including university, that I had no direction. Like I didn't know, like nothing felt, I wasn't passionate about any direction I was taking. And so I didn't ever have those big dreams of, I'm going to do this when I grow up. And I feel like my life now kind of found me after a lot of persistence and learning from a lot of people. You're one of them, on, some tough lessons that I think, the idea that most people quit right before they turn the corner to getting the thing that they've always been after has always stuck with me. And I feel like that's what happened. Like didn't quit. And finally we're living this amazing life doing exactly what we want to do. That wasn't even a job before we started doing it.
Okay. So I'm having some goosebumps moments because I'm sure some people can relate to that feeling of not knowing their direction. I think nowadays, like people have this like yearning for something, but they can't define it. So I want to kind of dig in a little bit about how you felt a little bit directionless, because there's something about you that I know for sure is the persistence. So what has you continue, like even though, like you said, oh, I'm not really into this, I'm not really into that. Why do you get up every morning? Like what inspires you or motivates you to get up in the morning then?
It's, even though I felt like I had really lacked direction, I've always also felt like like people didn't get me in the way, like I knew that there was something different, that I wanted a different kind of life than most people wanted. Mm-hmm. And I remember at this moment, and my mom brings it up all the time, was when I was in grade 5, mm-hmm. I had a wonderful teacher. I won't call her name here on the show, but she called my parents into the school as a bad thing to tell them in a negative way that I was a leader and that they needed to get a hold of that because people were following me as a child. I mean, I was only a kid, however old you are in grade 5. And that was like a bad thing. And I remember thinking at the time, and my parents said the same thing, like, it's not a bad thing. I don't know why you're getting in trouble for this. Then I remember thinking, well, that's not right. Like, you're trying to squash somebody's drive to do a different thing and like go a different way. And that happened young. And I think that happens a lot. And I feel like for a lot of people, that's one of those moments that stops you from mm-hmm. doing things differently and going another way.
I love that. I love how your parents reacted to that. I love that you got it, that something about that was off. And so this is the part about you that I really want to somehow tease out and just be like, what I've noticed, you know, being married to a gold medalist is often you don't even know what your thing is. You've got this thing, but you don't even know what it is. And you had it in grade 5. So what is it that even though the teacher's saying, no, this isn't the way it should be, what is it that inside of you keeps going when even the world thinks you're a little bit crazy?
I guess for me, it's really the idea, and the idea has been with me a long time, that I never subscribed to the idea that you work a 9 to 5 until you're 60 and you just do what you're supposed to do. And then you retire and you get to go live your life. Like, to me, that never seemed, it always seemed backwards. It just seemed like the reverse of what we should, well, not to should all over everybody, because I think everybody can do whatever they want to do. But that always seemed backwards to me. And so I've just never been satisfied. I've always felt antsy in those positions, like really like, what's the next thing? Okay, like I'm bored of this. What's the next thing? And so for me, that bored feeling, I didn't recognize earlier in life, but now I recognize that as the sign that I'm on the wrong path. If I'm bored, to me, that's the sign that there's something more there that you should be doing. Because I think when you follow something that you're really passionate about, you never get bored. And I never get bored now doing what we're doing.
Oh, I love it. So when there's times that it gets difficult, let's even talk like financially, right? So, you know, this idea like, hold on a second, the way the whole world is going, I feel like there could be another way. So you keep chasing that. You do unusual things that people think that's a hobby. You can't really do that. And when, let's say, for example, it's hard to pay the rent and people are like, well, see, now you're really crazy now. What keeps you in the game when it seems like everybody else can't see what you're seeing?
Tough question and interesting answer that most people don't know about me. And the answer is, it's not a straight path and it is very difficult. And I had a rock bottom, as like, I feel like people see the end result and they're like, oh, must be nice, like overnight success, you're living your dream life. But what they don't know is I declared personal bankruptcy not that many years ago and like had a really tough kind of come to Jesus moment with my own finances and with, and that pulls everything into question. Am I doing the wrong thing? Should I just go get a job? Should I stop, you know, chasing after this lifestyle that literally everyone thinks is crazy? And I think the thing, I don't know what it is that keeps you moving forward, because I did go get a job after that. And
you did, okay.
Did the things I was supposed to do for a while, but really quickly that feeling started sneaking in again about there's got to be a better way. I know there's a better way. I know people doing it a better way in the world. So it's possible. It's just a matter of figuring it out. And it is figure outable, and you just need to, I know that's a Marie Forleo.
I love that. No, but I say it to Jordan. She's got like, Jordan, everything's figure outable. It's perfect. It's great.
And I think a huge part of that is surrounding yourself with the right people and finding the right people who are operating on that same vibration, of knowing that if you're certain that there's a better way, I think that certainty is what keeps you going when things get really tough, and they will get really tough. I feel like all of us have had moments where you're like, this is what separates the people who are just going to go do what they're supposed to do from the people who continue and eventually make it to this sort of freedom lifestyle that we're after.
So is everybody picking up on her leading question that she says to herself? Like, Sarah, you say, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. It's like this asking that's out there, even when you're on, like you said, rock bottom, you're on your butt. And I think it's really interesting how now in retrospect, we can kind of almost see the curve of what was going on. You know, things were challenging you more and more and more and more. There's actually a growth formula that shows that we start projects in inception, and it's when everyone's pumped, everyone's excited, and then this deception time comes in, and that can come from external, but then when it hits hard, it's when we start to actually get deceived by ourselves. Like, what was I thinking? This is crazy. Everybody's right. You know, that's a pretty low time. And in some ways, it has all different degrees, but if we don't go through that, we don't have transformation, because on the other side of that, which is your story, lies something that didn't even exist. So tell me a little bit about the brainchild, because I know you've had lots of ideas. You have birthed a lot of cool stuff. I've worked with you over time, seen, and just been able to like relish in your great ideas, because you have a lot of great ideas. But dashboard living, like, where did that come from and what inspired it?
So Scotch inspired it.
Perfect. As it
no,
does.
we were, my now husband and I were dating at the time, and we were, as you said, it's so interesting you say I've always had these ideas and I've birthed a lot of cool things, because that also plays into this story we start telling ourselves about, oh, it's just another one of her things. She's at it again, you know, it's another crazy idea that's probably not going to work out. So there's always this, like, you really need to work on that. I think that's a major piece, is to work on the stories and that voice that says, like, you're just having another crazy idea, versus the voice that says, your ideas are awesome. You just haven't found the right one yet. So we were just talking over Scotch at Finbars, and that's a pub here.
Okay.
And Brent had always wanted to start a travel apparel company. And I said, well, if you want to have a travel and apparel company, you need an audience to sell that stuff to. So let's do something crazy to build an audience. And so we launched Dashboard Living with a project called 100 Days of Nova Scotia, where we committed publicly to everyone that we were going to create a video every single day for 100 days of different things to do in Nova Scotia. And that just snowballed. It was massively time consuming. It was a ton of work. It was a lot of late nights, but it turned into not a travel and apparel company, but this lifestyle brand with an audience, a growing audience, and, you know, businesses reaching out to work with us. And that has just turned into what it's turned into now, which is a lot more consulting. People started asking how we were doing what we were doing. And it was really organic. It was really, really, we didn't set out to be influencers. We didn't set out to be bloggers. And we certainly didn't set out to be marketers, although that's where it has gone, because we just learned through trial and error and working with so many local brands. So it's crazy. It's a crazy path, but it's awesome.
So I want to talk about the 100 days, because I was in Canada when you were doing it. And I want to talk about that commitment, because I think that sometimes when we talk about manifesting something or creating it, there's this, like you said, everybody thinks it's an overnight success. Those 100 days were grueling. And when, you know, for example, even the word influencer, people want the instant audience. But remember when you're making videos and nobody was watching them yet?
That's
How
my
did you
mom
go?
and your mom.
Yeah. So when our moms were watching your videos and cheering you on, and that was it, what allowed you to keep, like, what allowed you to stick with that commitment? Because I think that's huge, sticking to the 100 days, sticking to what you said you were going to do. How did you do that?
I think a huge part of it was us as a team. I think us as a team has been a miracle, like a magical thing, because Brent has this level of, like, I'm the visionary in our business. I have these big, crazy creative ideas. And he has this very serious dedication to follow through and to doing the things we said we were going to do, even when they're really hard, and completing things. And that's always been something that I've struggled with, is the completion. I have the ideas, I can dream really big, and then the execution is always where I have had some challenge. So what he's taught me over the years is that level of follow through. And now I have it, like, I've adopted it too. And he's adopted some of mine. It's just been a really cool dynamic. But in terms of finishing that project, by the time we got so exhausted that we didn't want to continue, and there were those times, and there were fights, and being really cranky on the road, and then having to fake it on camera and shoot a video. But by that time, we were so deep in, and being able to support our local communities the way we were gave us, like, we felt an obligation to finish what we said we were going to finish, because we were able to connect with so many people on a different level than we'd ever been able to connect with before. And it was the commitment to them. Like, it became the commitment to the audience and to the business owners.
Yep.
Above everything else, and there was just no way we weren't going to finish it at that point.
Okay, this is cool, because I love how you said you set out this task, we're going to do this, and then it sort of took on a life of its own, your commitments, like, you learned a lot about yourselves. Tell me a little bit about the trial and error around the marketing, because there's sort of this question around monetization when you're doing, let's say, a blog, or, how did you actually begin to see how it was benefiting everybody? So how did you marry the audience with the businesses, and talk us through that a little bit?
So what we did was, and we set out to do it this way, what we wanted to do was do things differently than they were being done. And what was being done at the time was very polished, very produced, lots of drone footage style videos. And so we really wanted to connect with the audience this way, face to face. We wanted them to know us. We wanted to know them. We wanted people to feel like they were friends with us. And so we started creating this kind of rough, they were edited, but they looked unedited videos that was really from a first person perspective. So everything we did was from an experience-based perspective. We wanted people to see what it was like as if they were doing it, not from a 50,000 foot view, but from a really granular level.
Cool.
And that intention, like wanting to connect with people that way, has sustained itself through our business. That's how we've grown this business, is connecting with people. The best compliment we ever get, and we get it all the time, is, oh my gosh, you guys are exactly the same in real life as you are on camera. And to me, that's the best, because I also had a story growing up that people didn't like me. I carried that story around for a long time, like not that long ago, really. And so it's been quite a journey for me. It's been quite a personal development journey for me as well. Yeah. Being able to be yourself and have people like you for that.
Wow. And okay, perfect lead in for this question, because you make this statement about having people like followers versus people that actually want to engage and like buy what you're selling. What's the distinction? What's the difference between almost the watchers and the engagers, like the real participants,
Yeah, I think it's the answer everyone will give, but I don't think it's the answer that everyone actually executes. And it is authenticity. It is being very much yourself, even when it's inconvenient to be that way. So our obligation is always to our audience first.
Yeah.
Even when a brand is paying us, and we're upfront with that. We're not promising a good review. We're not going to say something that's not true. If we don't have a great experience, we're not going to say we did. And people know that about us. People know that we will tell the truth, that we're honest, that, you know, they know our quirks, mostly mine. And I think that is the difference between the kind of audience that will take an action and the kind of audience who won't, is that the ones who will take an action are the ones who have really connected with whoever it is.
Yeah.
Versus that's why I always say, who cares if you have 1 million followers if none of them are into what you're doing, or if they don't convert? I mean, conversion is such a marketing. I mean, that's not how we think of our audience, but that's the truth. If they don't convert, then what are you even doing?
Do you think that it's important, like, is there a certain audience for you and Brent? Like, do you see that there's a link, like, between, because if you're authentic and being who you are, there's certain people that are going to vibe that and other people that aren't. So what do you have to do for yourself to not need to be liked by everyone, but be liked by the people that you want to be liked by, if you will? It's a weird way of saying that, but I think.
No, I totally get you. And I don't think there's an easy answer to that. I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with. Brent struggled with that a lot, not wanting to be polarizing.
Yes.
But I think it comes back to we have gone deep down the rabbit hole of personal development and mindset and all of those, you know, the woo. And it just takes a lot of work on your own confidence and your own knowing about yourself, like your own, even like, I love using the word, but it doesn't always translate, is like detachment from the outcome, and learning that skill has been super valuable. Detachment from when people don't like you, but also detachment from when people do, because having someone not like you doesn't mean you're a crappy person. But having someone think you're amazing also doesn't mean you're an amazing, like, that you can't, learning not to tie your worth to either one of those things.
Boom.
It's a work in progress still, but I think that's been the most valuable.
Do you know what's really great about your story? And I'm working more with moms around purpose as their kids get older. And it's all, your life is a demonstration of all the little steps that you've taken that people might have called crazy ideas, that you might have even thought were crazy ideas, but weren't they just preparation? Like, look at the ability now, what you're talking about with stories and what we tell ourselves and confidence and all these kind of things that are now required here. But it's like you needed to get knocked down a bit in order to grow the resilience part of yourself. And I love what you're saying about detachment. So out of curiosity, where'd you get that? Where did you work on yourself? Is it a book? Were you doing course? Where? Because that's huge.
You know who I listen to a lot of, and I love his work, is James Wedmore. You will love him.
I know. I'm like, why don't I know this? This is awesome.
So he runs a podcast called Business by Design.
Ooh.
And no, it's not called Business by Design. Yeah. Anyway, James Wedmore, if you Google him.
Spell that last name?
Wedmore.
Oh, Wedmore. Okay. That was good. We translated for the Aussies. They're having to deal with our accents already. Okay. Keep going. Tell me about it. Yeah.
So he talks about business, but he does it from a mindset perspective. And so he is very much about vibration and law of attraction and all of those things. And he talks a lot about detachment. So I think that's where I really started thinking about it, because I mean, I'm sure I'm not alone when I say I used to tie my worth to mostly how many people didn't like me. Like 100 people can say they think you're great, and one person says they think you're an idiot, and all of a sudden you feel like an idiot, which is crazy. It doesn't make any sense. But so I think that's been really valuable. And even just over the years, working with different coaches like you and, you know, several others, and listening and reading and really trying to not analyze my own stuff, but recognize and address my own stuff and continue. I don't think the work's ever done. I think it isn't always I think you can always grow, and you can always be a more compassionate human, and you can always be, you know, working harder and harder to, you know, see through love and look through the lens of love and all those things. And that's really been, I mean, it's really been miraculous in my life, if we're totally honest. And really recently we're seeing all kinds of things happen that you think, wow, like what you said, everything up till now, even the worst stuff, I wouldn't be here without all that stuff.
So let's carry the self-worth conversation to money. Okay. Because we're talking about likes and people liking what we put out there. Now talk to me about self-worth, especially in this game that you're in, money making and like value, like, oh, we're doing a good job because we're making this amount of money. Like, where do you lie today on that? And, you know, I know we're all in a journey around that, but I was just curious because I feel that a lot of people will be able to relate to what you share here.
I think the money conversation is a really important one to have. I don't think your worth is tied to how much money you make, but I think we all deserve to make a lot of money. I think we all deserve to be well paid for offering value to the people that we work with. And I really believe that being able to ask for that money and do it confidently translates into more money. Like it's amazing how when we are wishy-washy and we don't feel like we're worth what we're asking and we're sort of sinking back and we're like, whoa, this is what the price is, then that's what you get back. You get that level of person, you get that level of client. But if you are the opposite of that and you're really confident about what you do and you know that your worth isn't tied to the money, but that you deserve to be paid well, then all of a sudden you start attracting those kinds of people.
Oh, this is good. Was this a process for you or have you always known this?
Oh no, this has been a major process.
You're like, oh no.
Oh no.
And again, like, this is a great conversation because in so many areas, especially when you offer a service, like, and you are the deliverer, it can get really muddled into you. Like I think you're making a really cool distinction there. Is like, you deserve to make a lot of money, but what people pay you has nothing to do with your worth. Like these two things, that's a little dicey there, but that's kind of amazing what you're sharing. And have you noticed a difference in what you attract as you got more clear and confident on this?
Absolutely. Like a huge difference, like night and day. It's a hard thing to teach too, because I've listened to this exact conversation before I was ready for it. And I still operated from this like place of scarcity and taking on work because we needed the money and I get that part. Like I get that part, but at the same time, once you get beyond, and I think we all have to go through that part in order to learn this part over here, which is once you get to a place where you're not operating from scarcity and worry and distress about money, then all of a sudden money just starts flowing in a much bigger volume, seemingly out of nowhere. Like seemingly this week, a client emailed us out of nowhere and I'm not joking, told us they wanted to pay us double as thank you for all that we do.
Take that in, everybody. Miracles. What?
And I had just said, you know, it's funny, like, we don't get tips in our industry. We've never been tipped, blah, blah, blah. We had this tip conversation the day before. And the next day we got an email that said, we want to tip you twice what your invoice was.
Yeah, that deserves some silence. But you know why? Because the whole money conversation exists in our mind, in our head. And I think that, and by the way, I don't say this from I know all this. This is from doing the work. And I went through a period where I did the work. Then I thought, well, now I've done it. I've got this. And then if you don't do it for a while, your life starts to show up as quite haphazard, chaotic. And I was like, wow, okay. So what I've noticed for myself is all the work gets done off of the main transaction, meaning like all the work for me happens in the morning. Like, what do I say to myself? Like, what is the actual conversation going on? What possibility am I actually creating around this? And that happens totally off of the transaction. And then things like emails show up. Like my morning mantra is I attract those who are looking for what I have to offer. This is what I had to get. Like I was in a little bit in that force conversation when desperation's kind of leading you, or scarcity. And I remember, okay, go back to the basics. And that alone, miracles start happening. And then it encourages you more. You're like, oh, okay, this is worth it. Let me keep doing that.
It works.
This stuff works. Sara, like I've just loved diving into your life, because like you said, there's this assumption that it's an overnight success. And thank you for sharing all of it. Like you said, you're authentic. It's all of who you are. That's what people resonate with. That's what people are attracted to. That's when you get paid a tip. That's when you get double the pay. And so I think we all can do, you know, a little detox on ourselves. Ask ourselves, well, what is me? What is authentically me? And, you know, in a lot of the different areas of business that I do, I always say the best thing you've got is to tell the truth up front. Like if you're nervous about something or you're uncertain, like tell the truth. I feel that that's authenticity. It really helps. And like you just said, even when it's inconvenient, that's probably when you're the most vulnerable, when it's inconvenient. Yeah. So thank you for like this snapshot, and even from a financial perspective, from a marketing perspective, because there's a little bit of this elusive nature of how does this occur? And I think you've described it really well. So I really appreciate you. I've loved like just the culmination of where you've come, and just seeing it all put together is just amazing. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me and for being part of my journey. You were a part of it, and I so appreciate you for that.
I loved it. It was amazing. And thank you so much.